Before Toyota became one of the biggest automobile companies in the world, it was nothing more than a small Japanese industrial business. But one family's vision would transform a simple loom factory into a global automotive empire. But how did Toyota survive its darkest years and become one of the most powerful car companies on Earth? The story of Toyota begins long before the first Toyota car ever reached the road. It begins in Japan in the late 19th century with a young inventor named Sakichi Toyoda. Sakichi was born in 1867 in what is now Shizuoka Prefecture, Japan. He grew up in a humble family where hard work and craftsmanship were part of everyday life. His father was a carpenter, and from an early age, Sakichi became fascinated by tools, machines, and the way things worked. Sakichi also watched his mother and other family members working with traditional hand looms. The work was difficult, slow, and physically demanding. Sakichi began thinking about how a machine could make weaving easier and more efficient. Instead of simply accepting the old way of doing things, he began experimenting. He built his first wooden hand loom and started looking for ways to improve it. His early experiments were simple, but they revealed something important about Sakichi. He was not satisfied with existing technology. He wanted to make it better. Sakichi spent years designing and testing new weaving mechanisms. Many experiments failed, but every failure taught him something new. Slowly, his inventions became more advanced and more efficient. His work eventually led to automatic looms that could dramatically improve textile production. One of his most important achievements was the Type G automatic loom. Sakichi's inventions eventually became valuable to Japan's growing textile industry. But his greatest legacy would not come from textiles alone. Sakichi had a son named Kichiro Toyoda, who would eventually take the family story in a completely different direction. Kichiro was born in 1894 and grew up surrounded by his father's machines and industrial business. From childhood, he could see how engineering and manufacturing were changing the world. Instead of ignoring his father's work, Kichiro became deeply interested in technology and machines. He studied science and engineering and developed a strong technical education. His education gave him the knowledge to understand machines from a completely different perspective. After completing his studies, Kichiro returned to the family business. He began studying manufacturing, machinery, and industrial production more closely. But Kichiro was already thinking beyond textile machines. He became fascinated by automobiles and believed that Japan could eventually build its own world-class cars. And that idea would soon transform the Toyota family's small industrial business into something much bigger, the beginning of Toyota's automobile story. In the late 1920s, Kichiro Toyoda traveled overseas with a clear purpose: to understand the future of industrial manufacturing. He wanted to see for himself how advanced countries were building machines and automobiles. His journey took him to America, where he witnessed something that would deeply influence his vision. America had already begun transforming automobile production through large-scale factories and assembly lines. Kichiro carefully studied automobile engines, machinery, production methods, and factory organization. He saw thousands of workers building vehicles with speed and efficiency that Japan had not yet achieved. But Kiichiro did not simply want to copy what he saw. He wanted to understand the technology and eventually create something of his own. He also traveled through Europe, studying engineering and industrial manufacturing. When Kiichiro returned to Japan, he brought back something far more valuable than souvenirs, knowledge, ideas, and ambition. He began pushing the Toyota family business toward automobile research. Engineers were brought together to study how a reliable automobile engine could be designed and manufactured in Japan. The early experiments were difficult. Building an engine from scratch required precision, knowledge, and patience. Kiichiro personally followed the engineers' work and studied every problem they encountered. The team tested their early gasoline engines again and again. Some experiments failed, but each failure provided valuable information. Slowly, the engineers improved their designs and gained confidence. Eventually, they reached an important breakthrough. The Toyota team had developed its own automobile engine technology. But an engine alone was not enough. Kiichiro wanted to build a complete vehicle. The team began designing automobile prototypes inside the Toyota workshops. In 1935, their work produced the Toyota Model G1 truck. It was a major moment for Kiichiro and his engineering team. The truck was tested on Japanese roads, giving the engineers valuable experience with real-world performance. Every test revealed new problems to solve and new opportunities to improve. But Kiichiro had an even bigger dream. A passenger car that ordinary people could drive. In 1936, the Toyota Model A passenger car, was introduced. It represented a huge step forward for the Toyota family's automobile ambitions. Behind these vehicles was an increasingly organized automobile manufacturing operation, with engineers and workers learning how to build cars at scale. Kiichiro now believed the automobile business needed its own dedicated company. And in 1937, that vision became reality with the establishment of Toyota Motor Co., Ltd., the Toyota family's journey from textile machinery to automobiles had officially begun. After World War II, Toyota faced a difficult future. Japan was damaged, resources were limited, and the company had to rebuild. Toyota workers returned to the factories and began repairing machines, equipment, and production lines. The company understood that survival would require a completely new approach to manufacturing. Toyota engineers began searching for ways to build high-quality cars while using fewer resources. AG Toyota played an important role in studying Toyota's factories and improving their efficiency. Toyota began developing a production philosophy focused on eliminating waste and improving quality. This became the foundation of what would later be known as the Toyota production system. Workers were encouraged to identify problems immediately instead of allowing mistakes to continue down the production line. Toyota also developed the idea of producing parts only when they were needed. This approach helped Toyota become faster, more efficient, and remarkably consistent. As Japan's economy grew, Toyota's reputation for reliable automobiles grew with it. Toyota engineers then focused on creating an affordable car for ordinary families. In 1966, Toyota introduced the Corolla, a small car designed for the growing mass market. The Corolla quickly became an important part of Toyota's rise. Its combination of affordability, practicality, and reliability attracted customers across Japan. Toyota soon realized that its future could not be limited to Japan. The company began exporting more vehicles and looking toward international markets. America became one of Toyota's most important targets. Toyota cars began appearing at American dealerships, offering consumers an alternative to traditional American automobiles. As fuel prices and consumer preferences changed, Toyota's smaller and efficient cars became increasingly attractive. Toyota expanded its operations around the world and began building a truly global automobile business. The company also began establishing manufacturing operations outside Japan. Japanese and American workers increasingly worked together, creating a new era of global automobile production. But Toyota wanted to compete at an even higher level. In the late 1980s, Toyota created a new luxury brand, Lexus. Lexus entered the American luxury market with a focus on quality, technology, comfort, and reliability. Toyota was also looking toward another major challenge: the future of the environment and fuel efficiency. Engineers began developing hybrid technology that could combine a gasoline engine with electric power. In 1997, Toyota introduced the Prius, one of the world's most famous mass-produced hybrid cars. From post-war rebuilding to the Corolla, America, Lexus, and Prius, Toyota had transformed itself into a global automotive powerhouse. By the 2000s, Toyota had become one of the world's most powerful automobile companies. But a new generation of leadership was about to face some of its biggest challenges. One of the most important figures of this era was Aki Toyoda, a member of the founding Toyota family. Aki grew up surrounded by Toyota's history, but he entered the company at a time when the automobile industry was changing rapidly. As Toyota expanded around the world, maintaining quality across millions of vehicles became an enormous responsibility. Then Toyota faced one of the most serious crises in its history: major vehicle recalls and growing concerns about safety and quality. Millions of vehicles were affected, and Toyota's reputation for reliability came under intense pressure. Aki Toyoda faced the media and accepted responsibility while the company worked to understand and correct the problems. Toyota responded by strengthening quality control systems, vehicle testing, and communication across the company. But Toyota was already preparing for another major transformation: the future of the automobile. Hybrid technology had become one of Toyota's most important strengths. Engineers continued improving batteries, electric motors, and hybrid powertrains. Toyota's strategy was no longer simply about building gasoline-powered cars. It was about developing multiple forms of electrified transportation. As the global automobile industry moved toward electric vehicles, Toyota began developing a new generation of battery electric vehicles. Battery electric models became part of Toyota's expanding electrification strategy. Charging infrastructure also became an increasingly important part of the electric vehicle future. Behind these vehicles were teams of engineers working on batteries, software, motors, and new manufacturing technologies. But Toyota did not believe that batteries were the only answer. The company also invested heavily in hydrogen fuel cell technology, including vehicles such as the Mirai. Toyota saw hydrogen as another possible path toward cleaner transportation, especially for applications where batteries may not be ideal. Instead of choosing only one technology, Toyota increasingly pursued a multi-path approach: hybrids, plug-in hybrids, battery electric vehicles, and hydrogen. At the same time, the definition of a car was changing. Toyota began investing in autonomous driving technologies. Sensors, robotics, and advanced vehicle systems. Artificial intelligence and software were becoming just as important as engines and mechanical engineering. Toyota's vision was expanding beyond simply selling cars toward creating new forms of mobility. One of the most ambitious examples was Woven City, a futuristic project designed to explore connected transportation, smart infrastructure, robotics, and new ways of living. Toyota began working with engineers, technology companies, and researchers to build the mobility systems of the future. Inside Toyota's modern factories, robots, automation, software, and human workers now operate together to build the next generation of vehicles. From hybrids and EVs to hydrogen, AI, robotics, and connected mobility, Toyota is no longer just thinking about the car of today. More than a century after Sakichi Toyoda began experimenting with a simple loom, Toyota has become a global company, still searching for what comes next. And in 2026, the Toyota story continues a journey that began with one inventor, passed from father to son, survived wars and crises, conquered global markets, and evolved from a small Japanese workshop into one of the world's most influential mobility companies.